He built kill kits across the country. He picked victims at random. He had no clear motive, just a hunger for control and chaos. Israel Keyes didn't want fame, he wanted to kill and vanish. The chilling case of Israel Keyes, America's most calculated serial killer. A killer who didn't want to be caught. Israel Keyes is considered one of the most methodical and terrifying serial killers in American history. He wasn't like the others. He didn't seek attention, write letters to the media, or crave infamy. In fact, he studied notorious killers like Ted Bundy, not to emulate them, but to learn how not to get caught. For over a decade, Keyes operated in silence. He left no pattern. His victims ranged in age, gender, and location. He committed murders in one state while living thousands of miles away in another, and he never targeted the same demographic twice. There was no signature, only randomness and brutality. He buried kill kits across the United States, buckets filled with guns, silencers, zip ties, cash, and tools of murder, planted years in advance, waiting for the right victim. Then, after the kill, he'd vanish into the night, erase all trace, and continue on like nothing happened. This case is different because most serial killers eventually trip over their patterns. Israel Keyes had no pattern. He buried his crimes, literally and figuratively, so deep that many of them remain unsolved to this day. Early life and psychological profile. Israel Keyes was born on January 7, 1978 in Cove, Utah, as the second of 10 children to Heidi and John Jeffrey Keyes. His parents held strong anti-government beliefs, rejecting public education and modern medicine. At age 5, Keyes' family relocated to a remote area near Colville, Washington, living off the grid without electricity or running water. They attended a church that promoted white supremacist Christian identity ideology and became neighbors with the family of Chevy Kehoe, later convicted for a 1996 triple murder. During his adolescence, Keyes exhibited early signs of psychopathy. He admitted to shooting at neighbors' houses with a BB gun, starting fires in the woods, and breaking into homes. He also confessed to torturing animals, including a disturbing incident where he tied a cat to a tree and shot it. In 1998, Keyes enlisted in the U.S. Army, serving at Fort Lewis, Fort Hood, and in Egypt. Fellow soldiers described him as disciplined but quiet. Keyes closely studied serial killers, particularly idolizing Ted Bundy. He admired Bundy's methodical approach and aimed to avoid detection by learning from other killers' mistakes. The kill kits and methodology. Israel Keyes meticulously planned his murders, burying kill kits, also referred to as murder kits or caches, across the United States years before committing his crimes. These kits were typically stashed in waterproof containers, such as 5-gallon Home Depot buckets, and concealed in remote locations. The contents of these kits were carefully selected to facilitate abduction, murder, and body disposal. Items included weapons like guns and silencers, ammunition, various knives, and tools such as shovels. Restraints like zip ties, duct tape, and rope were also present, along with chemicals like Drano and lye to accelerate decomposition. Additionally, Keyes stored cash in these kits to fund his activities without leaving a financial trail. One notable example is the kit Keyes buried near the Winooski River in Essex, Vermont in April 2009. Over 2 years later, he retrieved this cache to abduct and murder Bill and Lorraine Currier. After the crime, he concealed the remaining items in Parishville, New York, where they remained hidden until his confession led authorities to their discovery. The murder of Samantha Koenig, the beginning of the end. On the evening of February 1st, 2012, 18-year-old Samantha Koenig was working alone at the Common Grounds coffee stand in Anchorage, Alaska. Israel Keyes approached the kiosk just before closing, ordering a coffee to draw her near. Once she turned to serve him, he brandished a firearm, forcing her to comply. Under duress, Samantha provided Keyes with her debit card and PIN, informing him it was in a truck she shared with her boyfriend. Keyes transported Samantha to his property, restraining her in a shed adjacent to his residence. To mask any sounds, he increased the volume of a radio and warned her against attempting to alert neighbors, claiming he had a police scanner. Leaving her bound, Keys drove to retrieve her debit card from the truck. Upon returning, Keys sexually assaulted and strangled Samantha to death. He then left her body in the shed and departed for a 2-week cruise with his family. After returning on February 17th, Keys devised a plan to extract ransom money. He applied makeup to Samantha's face, sewed her eyes open with fishing line to create the illusion of life, and took a Polaroid photograph. A ransom note demanding $30,000 was typed on the back of the photo, which he sent to her family. Following the ransom demand, Keys began using Samantha's debit card to withdraw funds, leading him on a journey through multiple states. Law enforcement tracked these transactions, and surveillance footage captured a masked individual making withdrawals. The breakthrough came when a Texas state trooper identified Keys' rental car in a hotel parking lot in Shepherd, Texas. Upon searching the vehicle, authorities discovered Samantha's ATM card, her cell phone, and the disguise used during the ATM withdrawals. This arrest marked the beginning of unraveling Keys' extensive criminal activities, ultimately revealing his involvement in multiple murders across the country, confessions, and hidden crimes. Following his arrest, Israel Keys admitted to the murders of at least 11 individuals, though he provided minimal details, leaving many victims unidentified. The FBI suspects the actual number of his victims could be higher. Among the few confirmed cases is the double homicide of Bill and Lorraine Currier in Essex, Vermont. On the night of June 8, 2011, Keys broke into the Curriers' residence, subdued them, and transported them to an abandoned farmhouse. There, he restrained Bill in the basement before returning to retrieve Lorraine, who had attempted to escape. After recapturing her, Keys fatally shot Bill and then sexually assaulted and strangled Lorraine. He concealed their bodies in the basement, covering them with debris. Despite extensive searches, their remains have never been recovered. Investigators uncovered cryptic drawings and writings in Keys' possession, including 11 skulls drawn in his own blood, which they believe symbolize his victims. Additionally, a suicide note filled with disturbing and enigmatic content was found, though it offered no specific information about his crimes or victims. Keys was meticulous in destroying evidence and remained uncooperative, often withholding information, which significantly hindered law enforcement's efforts to identify and locate his other victims. His death and the unanswered questions. On December 2, 2012, Israel Keys was found dead in his Anchorage Correctional Complex jail cell, having committed suicide by cutting his wrists and strangling himself with a bedsheet. At the time, he was awaiting trial for the abduction and murder of 18-year-old Samantha Koenig. Beneath Keys' body, authorities discovered a blood-soaked, handwritten suicide note on yellow legal pad paper. Contrary to investigators' hopes, the note did not provide information about his other victims. Instead, it contained dark, ominous poetry reflecting his disturbing mindset. One passage read, "Your face framed in dark curls like a portrait. The sun shone through highlights of red. What color, I wonder? And how straight will it turn, plastered back with the sweat of your blood?" Keys' suicide deprived law enforcement of critical information regarding his crimes, leaving numerous cases unsolved. The FBI continues to investigate his extensive travels and activities, attempting to link him to other disappearances and murders across the United States. His random selection of victims and meticulous planning have made it particularly challenging to connect him definitively to other cases. Final thoughts? The killer who slipped through the cracks. Israel Keys defied every profile of a typical serial killer, and that's exactly what made him so lethal. No clear motive, no predictable pattern, no need for recognition. A haunting reminder: the deadliest predators are the ones who hide in plain sight. He didn't crave headlines, he craved the shadows. Do you think there are more killers like Israel Keys out there, methodical, invisible, and still at large? And just how many of his victims remain undiscovered? Share your theories in the comments. We'll be reading them. Coming next week, The Man Who Knew Too Much, the disappearance of Fred Koenig. A legendary humanitarian vanished without a trace. What really happened to Fred Koenig? Join us as we unveil the mystery next week.